On today's edition of the Coach's Corner podcast, I'm joined with a very special guest, former safety for the Denver Broncos, Nick Ferguson. He joins the show today to talk about the Broncos and the Patriots game, to talk about his career in the NFL and some moments that he's had. We'll look at if he were to cover any wide receiver in today's NFL, who would it be? Which receiver would it be? Would it be Calvin Johnson, Brandon Marshall? Would it be Demaryius Thomas? Who is it going to be? He's going to answer that here for you guys today. He's going to provide a little insight on what it was like to be a coaching intern for the Denver Broncos this season under Gary Kubiak, and the ability for him to work with the Denver Broncos safeties like TJ Ward, David Bruton, Omar Bolden, Darian Stewart, and it's going to be a great show. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. We're also going to have, I appeared on the B&V Podcast with David Boreanez and Joey Vendetta. We'll have the clip here on this episode of the Coach's Corner podcast, and we're going to tell a Tony Romo Dallas Cowboys joke during the show. This is the Coach's Corner podcast. This is the Coach's Corner podcast, hosted live on CodyRourke18.com. Thank you for joining me here today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, and as you know, this is the holiday season, so I want to wish you and your listeners a happy holidays.
Thank you very much. You know, I hope you had a very great Thanksgiving. I know I did, gathered with friends, family, food, and football. It's such a great combination.
You know what? One thing about Thanksgiving, and it's funny that you mentioned that, it's always friends, family, and football. And this year, you know, we had 3 games. And it was spectacular. And I had to sell it to my wife and say, listen, I'm not just watching these games just to enjoy them, but I have to watch them because I have to break them down and analyze them. When I put it that way, she allows me to watch football and move away from some of the domesticated duties that she normally would have me do.
That must be nice. You know, I think I should tell my girlfriend that too. And like, I have to break these down on the show. I need to focus and watch this because when it comes to football and just Thanksgiving, it was hectic because I was trying to watch the games and like, I need your help with the turkey. I need you to put this in the oven. I'm like, so I was kind of scrambled a little bit there.
I'm telling you, you should definitely do it because it's not an excuse. I mean, it's something that is part of what you do. So say, listen, babe, if we can get the turkey in the oven before the games come on, we're solid. But after the games come on and the first kickoff, I'm gone. My attention and my focus is not on stuffing. It's on who scored touchdowns and can Tony Romo get healthy.
Oh, man. Whew. Yes, I agree. It was crazy. And then I don't know if you knew this, but I saw something and someone made an attempt at a joke and they said, how do you say Tony Romo in Spanish? Do you know that one?
No, I don't. How do you say Tony Romo in Spanish?
Mark Sanchez. Yeah. There was a crazy
wow.
When I heard that, I lost my marbles a little bit. But, yeah, so Nick joins us here on the Coach's Corner podcast. You know, obviously played 14 years in the NFL, was an undrafted free agent, played for Denver, Cincinnati, Houston, under Wade Phillips' defense, the Jets, and the Bears. And most importantly, Nick Ferguson has done a lot of great. You know, I remember watching Nick Ferguson back when I was younger. I was probably in 6th or 7th grade. I remember watching you, and you were playing really well. You played alongside Champ Bailey, you know, like I brought up to you, and the not the AFC Championship, the first divisional playoff game against the Patriots back in 2005 against the Patriots at home against Tom Brady. Champ Bailey jumped the route, intercepted, running down the field, and then Ben Watson comes out of nowhere and hits him out at the 1-yard line, which would have been a pick 6, but great hustle play by Ben Watson. But I remember that. I remember watching you play, you know, especially alongside Darrent Williams, you know, tragically, whose career was cut short due to a very unfortunate circumstance. But, you know, I enjoyed watching you play, and I actually modeled a little bit of my game at the time being in middle school. I modeled my game after you a little bit as a DB. They didn't really have too much Twitter on there, so it was hard for me to keep up with athletes like that. But I watched, and I learned a lot, and it was awesome watching you, and it's great to have you here on the show.
Well, I'm happy that I was able to influence you in that way, and that's the great part of playing the game of football in the NFL. You have that opportunity to show through your character what you do on and off the field, and you have the ability to inspire people. And it's funny that you mentioned that play against the Patriots. That's probably one of the most talked about plays in my career because I will be forever linked to Ben Watson, Tom Brady, and Champ Bailey, because on that play, I forced Champ Bailey to get that interception because forcing Tom Brady to slide inside the pocket and deliver the pass quicker than he wanted to. But the part that I get the grief about is not blocking Ben Watson. And I have to tell you, and if you look at some of the audio replay and even Ben Watson himself and his former teammate Teddy Bridges talked about it, he didn't even know where Ben Watson came from. And he was standing on the sideline. So there's no way that I could even know where Ben Watson came from. But it was a heck of a job and a play on his part to get Champ Bailey. But Champ Bailey really got tired on that play.
Oh man, it was in the first half. It was a close game. It was a battle. It was a defensive battle, and I think you guys made the most plays in the end. Obviously, that big play there was huge. Obviously, Jake the Snake, Plummer at quarterback. It was an awesome thing to see. But like you said, you did a great job forcing the pressure there on Tom Brady, and it's crazy to think about that. I mean, you got to be on the field with Tom Brady. With some of these guys who are out there still playing to this very day, like Ben Watson and Tom Brady. You've played against those guys, so that's a crazy thing to think about. And obviously, you just recently participated in the coaching internship with the Broncos. How did that go?
Well, you know what, that was great. And Coach Kubiak, John Elway, and Eric Studesville both kind of made that possible because I've always stayed in contact with Coach Kubiak. I just love being around him ever since my time as a safety with the Denver Broncos, because believe it or not, even though he coached on the opposite side of the ball, we still had an opportunity to talk as far as game plans are concerned. Like if we're on defense and the scout team is out there running against the offense, he would ask me, well, what would I do in that particular situation? So I was able to give my input somewhat into the game plan from a defense perspective. So that helped me trying to get the internship. And I have to tell you, it was a great experience. I was there for about a month. I got a chance to be around a guy, Wade Phillips, who gave me my first opportunity to break into the NFL. So I saw a lot of the inner workings of what we're seeing right now on the field defensively, but more importantly, how they put teams together from a personnel standpoint. I know, we see the Hard Knocks on HBO all the time, but you never really know what it takes and what's the mindset when GMs and scouts are trying to put a team together to be competitive, to make a playoff push. So it was great for me to see. Gave me an opportunity to interact and even get coach. That was the wild thing, because most of the time when you do those coaching internships, sometimes you just observe it. But I was given the opportunity to actually dig in and sit with a lot of those guys, Omar Bolden, David Bruden, Darren Stewart, and actually sit there and coach them and tell them, okay, well, here's what you have to look for when you're facing this type of quarterback. Or they give you pre and post snap formation recognitions, a lot of those kind of fundamentals that I see that guys are really struggling both on the college level and the pro level. So I was blessed to have that opportunity, and it did a lot to help my football IQ even further.
And that's definitely an awesome experience, especially, being on the field and kind of talking to the guys that we see on Sundays, as a fan, someone who's never played in the NFL, but loves it, studies the players. And with me and as a high school football coach, I tell my players, my DBs, I tell them, you need to study these guys on Sunday. You don't just watch it to watch the game. Study how they open up, how they gauge the distance between the wide receiver and the corner when they break their cushion. What does the cornerback do? Does he zone turn? Does he man turn? What coverage are they in? Is his eyes in the backfield, or is he focused on his man responsibility? And I have a lot of my kids take notes, and then I grade their performance, after a game. I look at them and kind of categorize it into what they could have done better and what they did do well. And it's a fun thing. I think defensive back is the most fun and rewarding position in football, but it's also one of the most demanding physical positions in the game. And it requires a lot of physical ability, and really it's very mental. As John Madden said, football is 90% mental, 10% 100% reaction. So that's an awesome thing. And speaking of Omar Bolden, I see, a lot, all the fans that follow you on Twitter, to keep up with you on social media, understand that you kind of took him under your tutelage a little bit, and it's great to see him playing. And what did you think this past week? Obviously, with TJ Ward going down, he had to step up. He came in and he played in some very crucial downs for the Denver Broncos alongside with David Bruton after TJ Ward fell down to the ankle injury. How would you say he did stepping in? Because that's a big game.
Well, I think, considering the situation and the magnitude of the game at that point, I thought he did a great job coming in and doing exactly what the coaching staff wanted him to do. And the one thing I told him is that you can play in this league a long time because you're a cornerback now playing safety. So you have those cover abilities. But what he has to do is, I told him, you have to change your mentality. You have to get out of the corner mentality and play in that safety role, because as you know as a coach, those corners, it's fast twitch muscle fibers, the anticipation, they're ready to break on balls. And when you're playing 12 yards away from the line of scrimmage, you have to wait. You have to at least hesitate to take kind of a read step before you start to jump on plays, because if you don't, then now you're setting yourself up for those deep balls. And one thing I did like, I liked the way that he played the game. He didn't panic. He was very patient. And sometimes when you're a guy and you have switched positions and you're coming in for a guy like TJ Ward, there's a little nervousness that you may have, but he didn't have any of that. So, it seemed as though, what Coach Woods and Coach Brown has been telling him, and along with what I've said, he's taking that to heart, and he's trying to become a better player, but more importantly, a better safety. So that's the one thing that I think that helps Wade Phillips in that defense, is the depth that they have. One guy goes down, and we always heard that cliche motto, next man up. But they have those movable pieces that will make that defense so much better when they're trying to defend multiple receivers that do tight ends.
Yeah, and we've noticed that with the Denver Broncos. You can look at all these other teams, guys who've had injuries go down, especially at the defensive back position. We saw it a couple years ago when Eric Berry got hurt. They really didn't have the depth or the experience at that position for some guy to fill in and keep things constant or consistent with the way it was when Eric Berry was playing, when he went down with an ACL injury or when he was out with lymphoma. So guys like that, you look at Denver, they got a lot of depth. Omar Bolden's been on the team for, a few years. He was on the practice squad for a little bit, and then he was on the roster. And he was a very, like David Bruton, he was a special teams guy, and eventually now he's moved into that position where he's got more of a responsibility, has more leeway to go, and obviously we saw with the punt return touchdown, he returns kicks and he flies down on special teams, and I think, like you said, him being able to be a cornerback and to learn how to play the safety position, he's got a chance to be in the league a lot longer than some of the guys who just play one position and have known that position since, high school or middle school, and that's an awesome thing. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, obviously big win for the Broncos over the Patriots. Defensively buckled down in the fourth quarter when it mattered most. The first three quarters meant, a couple blown assignments and some bad tackling on the first series. But Denver found a way to win. They were very resilient. And as an analyst and as a former player yourself, you played defense, so you got to watch a lot of offense when the offense was on field and you were on defense and you were on the sideline. You watched the resiliency that this Denver Broncos team had with all the circumstances, and a lot of people are using the excuses of injuries for the Patriots, which is not a really credible thing. All teams are experiencing injuries, especially Denver. You have a guy like Brock Osweiler, who's been behind Peyton Manning for years, steps up in his second start ever against Tom Brady on primetime in not the most ideal conditions either. You got guys injured on the line. You got, defensive injuries. You got guys like that, and you saw this team fight despite being down 21-7. Do you think that says a lot more about the team going forward than it does, teams with the identity where a lot of people are questioning, is Peyton Manning, are they playing better because Peyton Manning's not playing? I think the fight in this team is very positive, and it's reassuring. And as a coach, you see that, and you see that this team, when their back's against the wall, can do anything. What do you think about that mentality?
Well, here's one thing that people have to understand about the Denver Broncos organization. There was a certain level of expectations that the people, or just the fans in Denver, have as is. It's Super Bowl or bust every year. So the expectations go up. So inside that locker room, whether you're a new guy or you've been there for 8 years, the mentality is still the same. It's, all for one and one for all. We have to fight for the guy that's next to us. So that mentality you see on the field. So that's why I really wasn't surprised at some of the things and the ebbs and flows that the team has gone through this season, the questions, the doubts about Peyton Manning, the defense. They were a top-rated defense, and then you look at, the game against Kansas City, and it's like, what happened to this defense? But sometimes when you're in that locker room, you have to block out everything from the outside world, everything in the newspapers, everything the beat reporters are saying, because it only matters what the guys in the locker room think of themselves. And I can tell you this, it's not the fact that, the offense is just playing that much better because, hey, listen, Peyton Manning couldn't do it anymore. It's just that system that's built in. They believe in one another. And they were trying to do what they could to support Peyton Manning as he was going through his struggles. But that's why I tell people, I said, well, we have to wonder in those struggles that Peyton encountered, how much did his plantar fascia actually play and him not being able to step up in the pocket. So now Brock is now become the guy at the quarterback position where he remained that person, that mainstay quarterback for them throughout the season. We don't know that just yet. That's something that Coach Kubiak and John Elway would have to figure out when they cross that bridge. But for right now, the team is all in with Brock. I mean, they want to try to help put him in a position to be successful. The same level of production they gave for Peyton Manning on defense, they want to give that same opportunity for Brock. But for Brock, he does have an innate ability that Peyton doesn't have, and we all knew that coming in. He has a stronger arm, and he's very mobile. And then all of a sudden, I mean, people are talking about age and experience. Well, those are factors that we can't overlook. No. Of course, when you were 5 years younger, there were certain things that you could do then that you may not be able to do as well now. So you always look at that particular point, but I think the idea is you support the person who's under center, and right now that's Brock Osweiler, and they're trying to give him all the support they can give him.
Yeah, and Brock Osweiler is doing really well. Obviously, aside from a few drops, obviously the weather conditions were pretty rough at Mile High. Luckily, the Broncos found a way to do it. As an NFL team, you have to adapt. That's football in general, any level, no matter the weather conditions, you have to adapt, and I think Denver did that. Were you really surprised? I looked at, I was watching the game, and I think the one thing that surprised me the most about Brock Osweiler is that he did not panic. He looked okay. He looked like, in a high-pressure situation, like with the clock running down in the fourth quarter, being down and, having to decide, do we go for it? He looked very calm, which I think was a great sign, especially for the future. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that helped him out. There's a difference when you go through your weekly preparation, when you know that you're going to start that Sunday. I mean, the attention to detail is more dialed in and more focused, opposed to playing in a backup role, not knowing if and when you were going to get time in that game. So I think, for one, that actually helped him out in his preparation, but also scaling down the game plan, looking at the game plan and saying, listen, Brock, what are some of the plays that you like and what we have in our system, and trying to accentuate that by calling those plays. And that's why we saw a lot of those bootleg plays, getting him outside the pocket. That actually helped the offensive line take the pressure off of them. And also we saw a lot of those two tight end sets with the newly added Vernon Davis and Owen Daniels. That's something that we did not see when Peyton Manning was under center. I don't know why, but now we're seeing more of that type of personnel adjustment with Brock Osweiler, and I really like that. To me, when you have a tight end like Owen Daniels, you should run the stretch offense and have those tight end throwback plays across the field, or the boots and the wagons that we've come to know from a Gabby Kubiak offense. So to me, the reason that Brock looked comfortable is because those things, and then knowing as though you're playing at home and you have one of the best defensive units in the NFL. So to me, if that doesn't breed confidence in you as a quarterback, I don't know what does.
Yeah, and I think, I said he's probably got a really good mentality. He's been learning from the best. He's been learning behind Peyton Manning, and he sees how Peyton Manning prepares for a game, and I do think he takes note of that. So I was very impressed with him. I like what we see for the future. Whatever the coaching staff decides to do when Peyton Manning's fully healthy. I know the media is trying to turn a spin of it, but, as you said, John Elway, Gary Kubiak, they all know what they're going to do. They know what's going to happen, and they're the only ones that need to know. The outside noise does not matter. The analysts, the Skip Baylesses of the world. It's all just speculation, so they have an idea what they're doing. One thing I wanted to touch base with you about before I let you go was something that kind of really resonated to me, and it was your letter that you drafted to the Players Tribune entitled An Open Letter to Undrafted Free Agents, where you talked about the struggles, obviously, as an undrafted free agent, what it's like. You have to prove yourself to a team. You have to earn your stay on the roster. And with you had success with that. And you came in and you played pivotal moments. You played, pivotal parts of this defense back in 2005 and other years, especially in the NFL. And you also played under Wade Phillips. You mentioned the fact that the injuries were one of the biggest struggles for you, and the mindset it can put you into, and it kind of questions you, how are you going to do it? Because as an undrafted free agent, the scope on you is kind of different compared to a guy who gets drafted first pick at Alabama who deals with an injury. It's kind of looked at differently. And I've got a buddy also, and you may know him, Jack Williams, former nickelback of the Denver Broncos, tore his ACL, shortly got released, and it's been a hard time getting back in the league ever since. And from what I've kept contact with him is he's expressed the same thing. You have a bigger chip on your shoulder, essentially, because you're trying to stay on the roster, which is a hard thing. And you said, there were times where you had to push your body through some things. So what was that like? Obviously making that letter, I think it opened a lot of eyes up to people, especially myself.
Well, with that letter, I just wanted to give people the education on that there are other players that their path to the NFL wasn't via the draft. They were not taken first overall. And if you're not taken first overall, the route to staying in the NFL is hard work. I mean, you have to be lucky in a lot of cases. You have to have guys who sit in that room who make those decisions, who really feel strongly about you and what your potential can be and how you can help your team. And it's always very difficult for any player on any level to sustain an injury and be told that they cannot do what they long to do for so long. It is very difficult when you are an undrafted free agent. The odds are stacked against you. It's not to say that you can't do it, but the odds are stacked against you. And then you couple that with the injury. The team is thinking, okay, well, we don't have a real investment in this particular player. So if we were to depart and move him off our roster, it's really not going to hurt us that much. And that's why there's a lot of guys who sometimes they don't report certain injuries. And being a guy, there's a macho bravado that we have, and, we're going to play injured, we're going to play hurt. But sometimes those situations, those decisions can be more debilitating than we think. But it's hard for a guy who's not drafted to sustain the injury. He's off a roster. Now he's trying to find a way to get back in the game. It's very difficult because, once again, he was undrafted and he's injured. So the coaching staff or the scouts are thinking like, well, he was never drafted to begin with. So now he has a leg injury. Why would we go out and try to add that person to our roster? And you see it happen all the time. There's several guys that get drafted and they're former first round and second round guys, and you watch games and you wonder, like, how is this guy continually going from team to team to team when he's already shown us what he can do and he's already been proclaimed a bust? But it's because he was a former first round draft choice. And teams can say that. Someone can stand on the table and say, well, listen, someone believed enough in him to draft him in the first round, and here's a guy who's a street free agent with an injury. Well, he's considered to be damaged goods. And sometimes, once again, being a free agent and being injured, it makes it very difficult. But you hope that there's someone around the league that saw something in you in college or while you were with that former team that you were with and say, listen, let's bring him in and give him an opportunity. And that's all you want, an opportunity to get into camp, to show them, what you can do. So I tell your listeners, don't be discouraged. There are going to be people who tell you you can't do it because you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, you're not fast enough. I'm a true testament of don't believe that, because it can happen. You just have to go out there and show up and make plays. And before I go, I want to go back for a second and talk about something really quickly. You mentioned the fact that you talk to your kids about watching film and watching games that the pros play, and just don't watch it for a recreational sport. Just watch it to learn how to become better as a player. And all my years of playing in the NFL, I played so many times against Peyton Manning. And after games, we've had chances to talk. During my internship in Denver, I had a chance to sit down and talk to Peyton Manning. And I learned something from Peyton Manning over the years, and that is when Peyton Manning was the Peyton Manning of old that we've known him to be, Peyton Manning watched a lot of film. He didn't watch just a lot of film on his opponents. He watched a lot of film on himself. So you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. Watch your opponents, but more importantly, watch yourself, because your opponents are watching you too.
Yeah, and that you make an absolutely great point. It's always good to see what you can improve on. And I think as a player myself, as back in high school, I was a huge film guy. I'm still a very huge film guy to this day. But I would always find myself going up to coach and say, hey, coach, on this formation, should I line up a little bit closer to the tight end, or should I, where should my splits be? Or I'd point out something I saw on the defense, and it's good to see what you can improve on. And a lot of people, and the sad thing, and I've coach my kids on this too. Don't look at film to look at what you did good. Look at the film to see what you could do better, because there's always room for improvement in this game. There's no such thing as a perfect game as a football player. You have to always look at what you can improve on, because you're a human being. People will mistakes, and people, a lot of fans think that, people will go out there and they won't make mistakes because they're NFL players. It's the NFL. You're a human. It's a high-speed game. It demands so much. It's so mental as it is physical that really mistakes are going to happen. It's all about being in alignment, knowing what you can improve by yourself, and putting yourself in position to make plays like you said.
Well, listen, I played with some Hall of Fame players, and I played against some Hall of Fame players, and you're absolutely right. The idea is, because you're playing in the pros, every game is going to be perfect. Every angle is going to be perfect. There's not going to be any missed assignments or missed alignment or missed tackles. Listen, I haven't met a person yet that has put a complete game together 100% of the time for 16 to 18 weeks. Because so things are going to happen. You're not going to play your best game, but you hope that you have more good days than you have bad days. Because one thing about the NFL is there are guys on the other side, they're fast, they're strong, they get paid too. So they're going to make some plays. You just want to make more plays than they make.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the chess match of the NFL. With receivers against DBs. Obviously, so much speed in the NFL, so much size. Calvin Johnson's probably got to be the one guy in the league who has that speed and size. Demaryius Thomas, not necessarily the tallest guy, but he has the size and he has the speed as well. So some interesting guys. If you could cover an NFL wide receiver that is active to this day, which receiver would you most likely look forward to covering? Which would be the biggest test for you?
In today's NFL, where all the rules are catered to the offense,
oh man,
yeah. let's see. You know what? Here's a couple of guys, and some of these guys that play tight end. I mean, even though Jimmy Graham is as tall as he is, I would have loved to compete against him, just because he has that competitive drive. Vernon Davis is another one of those tight ends. But when you look at the guys at the wide receiver position, some of my old teammates, Brandon Marshall. I would love to compete against Brandon Marshall and Tavon Austin. I mean, I've been really impressed with his ability to move in short spaces and how quick he is, a very explosive player. I would have definitely loved to play against him. Now, of the list of guys that I gave you, he would be the toughest guy for me to try to stay with because he's so elusive.
Yeah, he's a fast guy, and as you said, he started off on the scene as a punt returner, kick returner for the St. Louis Rams, and has evolved into a talented wide receiver, kind of like what Ohio State's doing with Ezekiel Elliott as an H-back. He kind of plays an H-back type of position. He's a flex, true hybrid type player. You can use him multiple ways, and I think that would be a fun thing to see, man. So, this is I got Nick Ferguson here on the Coach's Corner podcast today. I appreciate you joining the show today and giving your insight to the viewers out there who are listening, and then especially to your testament of the open letter to undrafted free agents. I think it's something guys coming to the NFL should really read and really pay attention to, because it's a reality they'll make themselves aware of that you pointed out perfectly in your letter. So Nick, thank you so much for joining me here today. I look forward to having you on in the future.
Yeah, man, anytime. And if you haven't read that letter, you can go to www.theplayertribune.com and put my name in the search engine and look for that letter to undrafted free agents.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick, for being on, and I look forward to having you here soon.
Thank you, man. Anytime.
Have a good day.
Oh, you too.
Bye. And there you have it, the interview with Nick Ferguson live here on the Coach's Corner podcast. It was a great interview. I enjoyed having Nick on the show. Me personally, I grew up as a Denver Broncos fan, and when he was playing for the Broncos, I was a huge fan of him and Darren Williams, Champ Bailey, obviously John Lynch, the defensive backfield that the Broncos had in that time and era. It was very exciting to watch, and to have him on the show is a tremendous blessing. So thanks, Nick, for being a part of the show. Look forward to having you in future dates. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have the audio clip from the B&V Podcast with David Boreanez, Joey Vendetta. And for those of you who don't know who David Boreanez is, he's a big name actor who starred in a lot of TV shows, Buffy the Vampire Slayer as the Vampire Angel, and then the TV show Angel. But he was also known for today as being the actor who plays Seeley Booth, FBI agent in the hit TV show Bones on Fox. I'm on their podcast with them. It's awesome. We talk about sports. We talk about who I think is going to win the Super Bowl eventually. The answer is not the answer that most people would like me to hear. I said the Patriots, but then that could have changed at the time, because when we recorded it, the Patriots were healthy. They had all their weapons, and right now they don't. So that's obviously going to change. And then it's just a great show. Great honor to be on their podcast with them. We're going to have that audio clip when we return. You've been listening to the Coach's Corner podcast here on CodyWork18.com. Follow us on social media at Coach's Co Podcast on Twitter, and enjoy the rest of your show. We're back, and with that, I'm going to present you guys with the audio clip from the B&V Podcast, where I had the privilege of being on with David Boreanez, Joey Vendetta, the B&V Podcast, the #1 sports podcast on Play.It. Very exciting of it, and without further ado, here we go.
Yes. I have cousins in Cincinnati.
Here we go.
Oh, Jesus
This is
Christ.
this
Hold
is
on.
going to be interesting.
Did you answer the phone that quickly?
No, he's not
wait.
even on. 2 rings.
All right, this kid, Cody.
If it's a 3rd ring,
yeah, he's out.
he's out.
He's gonna. Oh,
Super Johnny.
Hello?
is this Cody Rourke?
Yes, it's Cody.
Cody, you are back. Cody,
We're back.
Cody, tell us about how you got involved to be. I might hazard a guess and say you're the #1 fan of the B&V Podcast.
You know, I don't want to take the credit. As long as you mention it, then I'll take credit for saying, yes, I do believe I'm the #1 fan of the B&V Podcast. It's crazy, man, and it's good to be back.
Well,
What do you mean? Hold on, Cody. You were never here, so you can't be back.
Yes, exactly.
Second of all, Cody, you sound like you're on prescription drugs. Are you okay?
Oh, absolutely fine. No prescription drugs over here. Just very excited to be on the B&V Podcast.
Where-
with you guys.
what do you-
If you knew the true story behind how I became a fan of it, it's a pretty great thing.
All right, tell us how you became
Tell
a
us how
fan.
you became a fan. We want to hear about ourselves and why we're so great.
So it all started, I tore my ACL back in June, and, I was obviously bedridden, couldn't really do much, I had to rehab for a month before surgery, and became a little, I kind of fell into a depression because, as an athlete, usually, up and moving around, I wasn't able to do that. So I was actually on Twitter, saw David tweet out, B&V Podcast, and I actually listened to it in the first time. And so with that, it actually brought, I laughed a lot, obviously. That was a great thing, but you guys talk sports and all that. So I became instantly hooked. I think I binge listened to probably the whole first season. And then when the second season started up again, I was like, wow, it's great to be back. Obviously the topics you guys talk about are hilarious. And it's all 100% natural, which is, I think, the most important part about what you guys do.
Nice.
Wow.
Wow. You know
We're
what?
100% natural.
That was a great tribute.
Unlike Fluffernutter.
Hey,
that was a great
How's your
tribute.
knee, man? How's the rehab?
Yeah, how's the rehab?
Wait,
How's
where
your-
is he, by the way?
How's your
What city?
ACL? He's in aren't you in Utah or something?
No, Colorado.
Yeah, same thing.
High.
There's silos and guns there. That's all I know.
we're back.
We're coming there when the world ends. We're coming to see you, Cody. Do you have a silo we can sleep in?
I do underground bunker, and there's enough room, and we could have a pod underneath the ground. Oh, man, it's going to be amazing.
Underground
Can you imagine
pod.
I like this guy.
Cody, let me ask you a question. Cody, how's the rehab going, and are you walking?
Yes, walking about 5 months through rehab. It's going pretty well. You know, I did remember a time. I think David, you tore your ACL one time. Pretty crazy stuff. You know, it's a long process.
Hold on.
Definitely
David,
gotten a lot better.
Hold on, David. Did you tear your ACL?
I did way back in high school.
When?
That was a long time ago.
Wow, Cody, hold on a second, Cody. How do you know that David tore his ACL so long ago? Cody?
I've done my research.
I love this guy.
I love Cody.
You're in, Cody. You're in. Let me tell you, Cody, you do your own podcast, right?
Yes, I do, yes.
What's your podcast?
Every week
What's
on
it about?
iTunes.
We'll pump
What's
it
it
up. What do you
about?
got?
What's it
What's
about?
it called?
It's the Coach's Corner podcast. I talk about sports and just everything. I have a couple guests. You know, I'm trying to get the Oregon Ducks head coach, who used to be my head coach back when I was playing in Marshall football in my high school, trying to get him on there. You know, obviously I know David's a big Philadelphia Eagles fan, so he knows Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely have a lot of stories on
Listen,
Chip Kelly.
man, Chip is done. Chip should go back to the college rankings because I'll tell you what, he does not know how to handle professional
Bad
athletes.
decisions.
You know where he's going? He's going to
Makes bad
USC,
decisions.
and instead of holding up Rocky signs on the sidelines, he's going to be holding up Felix the Cat signs for the USC.
Why wasn't he
Trojan
kicking?
fans.
Oh,
Hold on a
forget
second.
it. I wanna
Hold on
be
a second
fucking
here.
Chip
Cody,
Kelly.
let's get back to this guy. Cody, how old are you?
I'm 21 years old.
Whoa.
Definitely down here living in Colorado. You know, it's been crazy. So, 21 years of age.
Wait a second.
Cody Rourke.
You were a 3-time ADFL championship cornerback. What's the ADFL?
So the ADFL, as soon as I got out of high school, obviously I attended a sports management program online, but I played in this arena league, this developmental league for a football league for 3 seasons in what they call the American Developmental Football League. Played there 3 years, put up tremendous numbers, and then obviously my 4th year tore my ACL. So career's done, though. But yeah, so now I'm focused on broadcasting and obviously, you know, being on podcasts and just, you know, talking about sports.
And
Cody Rourke.
You have a website called CodyRourke18.com, and I just pulled it up, and it's got a picture of you, and you look like you're making duck face, like you took a selfie, but you have a trophy in your hand, and then you have a cool football uniform from the Gladiators, and you got cool pants on, and you welcome us to CodyRourke18.com, which is the official website of Grand Junction Gladiators defensive back Cody Rourke. Cody, let me tell you something. I used to be the voice of the L.A. Kiss. They're an arena
hell
league
is
football
that?
team
LA Kiss.
owned by Kiss.
Wow.
I think, Drew, did you ever come to a game?
No, I threatened to come a couple
Drew,
of times.
question
I was the voice. I was the in-arena announcer of the LA Kiss. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, it was Gene Simmons on the
Yeah,
sidelines.
Gene Simmons and
instead of
Paul Stanley.
He was probably drinking
now, Cody,
stuff that was
did you
not-
aspire to the Arena Football League?
You know, it was a goal of mine, but, you know, as essentially, you know, as a 21-year-old, you have responsibilities that come first. You know, obviously, you know, the variation between the leagues is a big, you know, discrepancy, you know, especially in Colorado, especially when you're in a developmental league. But it was always a fun goal to aim towards, and you work really hard towards it. And I think any athlete who wants to get somewhere works hard towards it. If it works out, it works out. If not, it doesn't, you know, so definitely thankful for that aspect.
Hey, Cody, let me tell you, give me your. Being a sports podcast, because we don't really know what we're talking about. We go all
we
over
do,
the
but we
place.
do kind of.
We kind of don't, but we kind of have a lot of fluff and nutter thoughts. Let me ask you a question, and because we're a big fan of fluff and nutter, but let's go right down the line right now, without thinking. I want your first response. Who's winning the Super Bowl?
Patriots.
Okay, who's winning the NHL Stanley Cup?
The Philadelphia Flyers.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know anything. This guy.
Cody is back.
Cody, let me ask you a
He
question.
knows that you're driving the Darth Vader Flyer
Hold
Raptor
on a second
mobile.
here.
I love Cody.
Let me ask you an important question, Cody.
I have an important
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Cody?
Yes.
As a young man, 21 years old, recently graduated from high school, do you find social media helps you to get laid?
Absolutely not. Yeah, it could, but, you know, it absolutely doesn't. You know, I'm in a great relationship with a girl I've been with for a few years now.
You're coming up.
Good for him.
Cody,
He's like Nixon
Cody,
right now.
Cody, how do you know she's a girl?
Oh, Jesus. That's,
Oh,
you know what?
man.
That's kind
I
of
like
like...
to hope, you know, all those nights, you know, checking, you know.
Is there an Adam's apple involved?
But
Oh, man. You know what,
I just
Joey?
want to make
I
sure,
have,
man.
I
don't
have
know
an
this
important
kid.
question. Cody Rourke.
red flag.
You're back. All right, Drew has
Cody
an
Rourke.
important question.
Cody Rourke, any relation to Sergeant Rourke from F Troop? That's a great
He doesn't
show.
even know what F
That's a
Troop
great
is.
It's a long-lost relative of Mickey.
Mickey.
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke.
I was outside a restaurant.
He's
Mickey
got bad
Rourke,
hair
you know what?
right now.
Mickey Rourke's a nice guy. He buys, when the kids are selling chocolate bars outside of a restaurant, Mickey Rourke goes outside and buys all of them.
Good
and
man.
then he gives the chocolate bars to the valet guys. I thought that was pretty nice.
That's pretty nice.
Cody.
David, didn't you have a weird encounter with Mickey Rourke on Sunset Boulevard one time?
Wow, I don't know. He knows too much about it.
Way too much about
I may
This
have
is
been
kind of creepy.
I may have been
Cody, this is
drinking
officially creepy.
way too much sauce at the time. Obviously, I don't remember what happened 2 days ago, Cody. I live in the moment. Past and present make no sense for me whatsoever. When I go into the pod, I break it down. I almost throw on a little, hey,
get the hustle going again. Oh, yeah, you know what?
Out.
We need the Gong Show back.
Do you ever watch the Gong Show?
Cody, do you know the Gong Show?
Unfortunately, I don't think that was in my time.
Okay. Cody, there's this thing called the internet.
Eugene, the dancing machine, could be Cody, the pod dancer machine.
Cody, right now, would you say this is the highlight of your adult life?
So nice.
I'd have to say it might be up there at time. Aside the fact that at a time I actually got to hang out with the whole Denver Nuggets basketball team up in Portland, Oregon.
Was that when Allen Iverson
Definitely
was playing?
up there.
Was that when Allen Iverson
Who were you hanging out with? Ty Lawson?
Unfortunately, Ty Lawson, he's the one who gave me tickets to the game. But, I tell you, the most interesting character, and the guy who I actually didn't like, I don't know if you guys want him on the pod, would be the Birdman, Chris Anderson.
You know that guy?
Mohawk, flies around. He was a character.
Do you know that guy?
Unfortunately, yeah, I had the privilege of meeting him a few times, and then, his real character comes out about probably the third or second time after you talk to him. He's very smug and arrogant.
Wow. Cody, you're really throwing it down. All right, Cody, thanks for being on the pod. You're done.
We're
done. We hope you had a nice Thanksgiving.
You have got...
Keep tweeting.
You
keep
got
following.
Podded, man.
You're
you are
back.
now no longer a pod virgin. You have been exercised. Put the cherry hat on.
Your pod has been violated. You're back.
Thank you.
All right. That was Cody. He's back.
Out.
He's good.
He's out.
Was he the first listener we've ever had on the pod?
Look at that.
You know what? We're going to send Cody for his help. We're going to send
Our
him
undying respect and admiration.
We're gonna, you know what? We're going to give out gifts.
I got to get out of here.
A baked potato bean bag.
Good job.
Have you seen?
And that was my cameo appearance on the B&V Podcast with David Boreanez, Joey Vendetta, Drew Ferrente, guys of this show, big fans of. I'm a huge fan of them. I plan on having them on the show one of these days here soon. Very grateful for it. And Drew, David, Joey, get ready because I'm going to send you for Christmas B&V Podcast beanies. So get ready to put that on in the pod. Don't sweat too much because obviously Drew's got to pay his AC bill still. So we're going to have that in the near future. And it was a great experience. What a great show we've had today. Nick Ferguson, former safety of the Denver Broncos, and the B&V Podcast with David Boreanez, Joey Vendetta, and Drew Ferrente. This is Cody Rourke on the Coach's Corner Podcast. Join me next week as we dive into the world of sports. Thank you for listening to the Coach's Corner Podcast, hosted by Cody Rourke, live here on iTunes and CodyRourke18.com. If you want to catch previous episodes of the podcast, go to CodyRourke18.com and click on the Coach's Corner Podcast tab on the right-hand side and click on the link where it'll take you to the iTunes store under the podcast section, and you can listen to every single past and previous episode of the Coach's Corner Podcast live on iTunes, on your iPhone, or on CodyRourke18.com. This is Cody Rourke from the Coach's Corner Podcast.